Your struggle is a setup. You've been calling it a struggle. But what if heaven is calling it a setup? What if the pain that's pressing you is actually positioning you? What if the storm you're praying for God to stop is the very thing He's using to steer you? See, some of you have been trying to figure out why it's been so hard lately, why the doors aren't opening, why the people you counted on walked away, why it feels like you're climbing uphill while blindfolded and barefoot. But let me ask you, have you ever considered that maybe this is not the enemy pushing you back? Maybe it's God pulling you forward through a path you wouldn't have chosen, but one that leads to what He promised? Because God doesn't waste struggle, He doesn't misplace pain, He doesn't overlook wrestling. That thing you thought would break you is about to build you. You prayed for strength, so He gave you resistance. You asked for patience, so He gave you delay. You wanted purpose, so He gave you pressure, because God is not raising spiritual tourists. He's developing spiritual warriors, and warriors are not trained in comfort. They're forged in conflict. That rejection you thought was a setback. That wasn't a no. That was a not here. That was a not yet. That was a not with them. Because sometimes God will subtract people from your life not because they were bad, but because they couldn't carry the weight of where He's taking you next. You've been saying, God, get me out of this. But maybe the right prayer isn't get me out. It's God, grow me in it. Because when God sets you up, He'll do it in such a way that no man can take the credit. He'll allow you to fall, but not fail. He'll allow you to be buried, just long enough for roots to take hold. He'll allow you to be overlooked, because what He's growing in secret is going to blow their minds in public. You've been thinking it's over, but heaven's been thinking it's only just begun. Joseph was thrown into a pit, lied on in a palace, and forgotten in a prison, but it was all part of the setup to get him to the palace. David was anointed as king, but had to dodge spears in caves before he ever touched the throne. Jesus Himself was crucified in public humiliation before being raised in supernatural victory. If God trusted them with a struggle, you better believe He's trusting you with one too. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're a threat. Because there's glory on your life. Because you carry something hell can't kill and heaven won't waste. So don't curse the process. Don't resent the pressure. God is not punishing you. He's preparing you. It's not falling apart. It's falling into place. You are not being buried. You are being planted. God uses pressure as preparation, not punishment. When God allows pressure to come into your life, it's not always because you did something wrong. It's not always because He's punishing you or turning His face away. Sometimes pressure is the clearest sign that God's hand is actually on you. He's not putting pressure on you to crush you. He's shaping you, molding you, refining you. Because the only way gold gets purified is through fire. The only way strength gets tested is through resistance. You don't get strong by sitting still. You don't grow by staying comfortable. Growth requires pressure. Purpose requires pain, and God loves you too much to leave you unprepared for what He's already planned. So instead of removing the pressure, He uses it. Instead of erasing the struggle, He orchestrates it so that you come out of it with greater capacity, greater endurance, greater faith. You've been asking God to remove it, but He's using it to remove what's been holding you back. You've been pleading for it to stop, but He's allowing it so you finally stop depending on your own strength and start leaning fully into His. Because pressure reveals what's real. It brings to the surface what's been hiding under the surface. And until the pressure showed up, you didn't even know that bitterness was still in your heart. Until the pressure hit, you didn't realize you were still carrying fear from what they said about you years ago. But God saw it, and instead of exposing you publicly, He applies pressure privately, because He's not trying to embarrass you, He's preparing you. He's making room in your life for something bigger than what you can handle right now. And if He gave it to you without the pressure first, it would crush you. So the pressure isn't punishment, it's protection. It's promotion in disguise. It's God saying, I see more in you than you see in yourself. You think it's too much, but God knows it's just enough to stretch you without breaking you. It's just enough to wake up the gifts inside you. It's just enough to break off the laziness, the fear, the pride, the insecurity that's been keeping you in cycles. He knows how much you can take. He knows what he put in you, and he knows what it's going to take to get it out of you. So while you see pressure, God sees potential. While you see pain, God sees preparation. You're not losing your mind. You're being trained to have the mind of Christ. You're not falling apart. You're being broken open so faith can rise out of the cracks. The pressure isn't proof that God has left you. It's often the evidence that he's closer than ever, because God never applies pressure without purpose. He never allows crushing without calling. He never wastes a drop of what you go through when you trust him in the middle of it. Rejection is often redirection to divine positioning. Rejection can feel like the deepest kind of pain because it strikes at the core of your identity. It makes you question your worth, your value, your calling. It whispers lies like you're not enough, you're too late, or you don't belong. But what if rejection is not a reflection of who you are, but a redirection of where you're supposed to go? What if the door that slammed in your face was God's way of guiding you towards something that could hold the weight of your destiny? Because God doesn't just work in open doors. He works in closed ones too. He leads through detours. He guides through delays. He redirects through disappointments. You thought you were supposed to stay there, but God knew that staying would have stunted you. You thought that relationship was going to last forever, but God knew that person couldn't walk with you into the next season. You saw rejection, but God saw redirection. He saw that the opportunity you wanted would have distracted you from the purpose he designed. He saw that the crowd you were trying to fit into would have compromised the calling he placed inside of you. So instead of letting you settle, he let you feel the sting of rejection, not because you were unworthy, but because he was guiding you towards something greater. Because rejection doesn't mean the end. It often marks the beginning of alignment. It's where you stop striving to be seen and start standing in who you already are. It's where you stop begging for affirmation and start building on the identity God already gave you. It's where you stop trying to prove yourself to people who never had the capacity to see you correctly. You're not called to convince people to accept you when God has already chosen you. Rejection is a divine filter. It removes what's not aligned with your purpose so that what is meant for you can find you. It strips away the temporary so you can walk into what's eternal. You thought being left out was a curse, but it was actually God's way of keeping you from being locked into something that couldn't carry the weight of your calling, because not everyone can go where God is taking you. Not every connection is covenant. Not every opportunity is ordained, and sometimes the greatest gift God gives you is a door that doesn't open, because when the right door opens, it won't require you to shrink to fit. It won't ask you to water down your voice or compromise your values. It'll fit the version of you that's been refined in the fire of rejection. So don't despise the no. Don't curse the closed door. Don't carry bitterness from the breakup, the job loss, the silence. God is not punishing you with rejection. He's positioning you through redirection. He's realigning your path so you can walk in power, not approval. He's pruning your circle so you can move with focus, not fear. He's preparing something so tailor-made for you. It wouldn't have made sense if you hadn't been rejected from everything that didn't fit. The struggle is not a sign of weakness, but a setup for strength. The struggle you're facing isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that something is being built inside of you that couldn't be formed any other way. God is not intimidated by your struggle. He's invested in it. He's using it to stretch your faith, sharpen your focus, and strip away everything that's been standing between you and what he created you to become. The weight you're carrying is not random. It's resistance that's developing spiritual muscle. You can't develop strength without strain, and you can't walk in power without first learning to endure pressure. The enemy wants you to believe that struggling means you're weak, that it's a flaw in your character or a failure in your faith. But struggle is not weakness. It's proof that you're still fighting. It's evidence that you haven't given up. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. If you weren't carrying something dangerous to the gates of hell, you wouldn't be wrestling like this. The fact that you're struggling is a signal that there's greatness in you, and that greatness has been activated. There's something in you that's waking up because of the pressure. There's purpose being unlocked in places you didn't even know existed. You're discovering grit, resilience, and a fire that doesn't come from hype, but from the Holy Spirit working in the middle of hardship. Sometimes it takes a struggle to reveal the strength that was hidden in you all along. Sometimes it takes the storm to show you that your roots are deeper than you thought. Struggle teaches you to pray in ways comfort never could. It teaches you to depend on God when everything else falls short. It teaches you to praise through pain, to stand when quitting feels easier, and to believe even when nothing around you looks like the promise. The struggle isn't pleasant, but it's productive. It's shaping something in your spirit that success alone can't produce. You're not being overlooked. You're being overhauled. God is refining your character, enlarging your capacity, and aligning your spirit to carry what He's about to release. And if you try to skip the struggle, you'll sabotage the strength. If you rush the process, you'll forfeit the power. This struggle is sacred because it's where oil is formed, where anointing is crushed out of the olive, where glory is birthed from groaning. Every tear you've cried is watering the ground for your next harvest. Every sleepless night is sowing something eternal. Every time you felt like breaking but kept believing, something inside of you was being built. This isn't wasted. It's not random. It's not punishment. You've been marked for more, and the struggle is what forges the steel of your spirit. You may not see it yet, but you're becoming stronger than the situation. You're being trained in ways you can't quantify. And one day, the same struggle that tried to take you out will become the story that lifts somebody else up. What feels like being buried is actually being planted. You've been looking at your situation thinking you're buried, thinking everything is closing in around you, thinking the darkness means defeat. But maybe it's not a burial, maybe it's a planting, because there's a difference. When something is buried, it's dead and gone. But when something is planted, it's just getting started. And the only way new life can begin is if it gets pushed down deep, out of sight, under pressure, in a place nobody else sees. That's where growth begins. That's where God starts doing His most powerful work. Not on the stage, but in the soil. And it's messy in the soil. It's lonely in the soil. It's silent in the soil. But just because it's hidden doesn't mean it's over. Just because no one sees it doesn't mean God isn't working. He's the God of the unseen. He's the one who does His greatest miracles in the places you call forgotten. You might feel like everything's being stripped away, like everything is falling apart. But maybe that's just the process of making room for roots. Maybe God is building you from the inside out, not the outside in. You don't need the spotlight when you've got soil. You don't need the applause when you've got purpose. The deeper the roots go, the stronger the fruit grows. But you don't get fruit without first surrendering to the dirt. You don't get resurrection without a grave. You don't get the promise without walking through pressure. Sometimes God allows you to be planted in obscurity so you can grow in maturity. You've been wondering why it feels like nobody's noticing, nobody's calling, nobody's affirming you. But maybe God is using the silence to strengthen your soul. Because if you bloom too fast, the wind can break you. If you rise too soon, the weight of what's next can crush you. But if you're rooted, you can stand through storms. If you're grounded, you won't fall when things shake. That's why the season that feels like burial is actually a setup for breakthrough. It's where God is growing endurance, deepening trust, and pulling out everything that can't go with you into your next season. Don't despise the dirt. It's where destiny begins. Don't run from the silence. It's where God speaks in whispers. Don't give up in the waiting. It's where strength is being formed. You've got more inside you than what people see on the surface, and it's in the planting that what's inside begins to push through. The seed doesn't scream. When it's under the soil, it just starts reaching. It just starts stretching. It just starts growing toward what it was created for, and that's what's happening in your life right now. Even if you can't see it, even if you don't feel it, even if everything looks dark and still and silent, something is happening beneath the surface. Something is taking root, something is breaking open, and the same dirt that tried to cover you is going to be the platform God uses to reveal you're not stuck. You're being strategically stationed by God. You've been saying you're stuck, but heaven's been calling it strategy, because sometimes God will hold you in a place that feels like delay just so he can develop you for what's next. You think nothing's moving, but something's shifting. You think nothing's changing, but something's being aligned. When God is positioning you, it doesn't always look like progress, it often looks like pause. It looks like stillness. It looks like being passed over, left behind, or forgotten. But what you don't see is what's happening behind the scenes. What looks like inactivity is actually intentional. God is placing you with precision. He's not random. He's not reckless. He's strategic with every move, every moment, every obstacle. He knows exactly what you need and when you need it. And sometimes he won't let you move forward until what's in you is ready to stand in the weight of what's ahead. You're not stuck. You're being stationed. You're being hidden on purpose. You're being planted with a purpose. When soldiers are stationed, they don't complain about being stuck. They know they've been assigned. They understand that their placement is for protection, for mission, for timing. And the same is true in the spirit. God assigns you to a moment, to a place, to a season, not to punish you, but to prepare you. He won't release you until you're equipped. He won't promote you until you're rooted. The longer the wait, the greater the weight of glory that's coming. And sometimes that strategic stationing feels frustrating because you see the vision but don't feel the movement. You know the calling, but you don't see the doors. But faith is forged in stillness. Trust is built when you can't trace him. Obedience grows when your only instruction is to stay. God is not slow. He's specific. He's placing people around you, shifting atmospheres, aligning resources, and orchestrating divine connections you don't even know you'll need yet. That delay is not a denial, it's design. You think you're in the background, but God is building your backbone. He's putting steel in your spirit. He's teaching you how to stand when nothing's standing for you. He's training you to hear his voice when the noise is silent. He's anchoring your identity so that when you step into your assignment, you don't shrink to fit it. You stand to fulfill it. Being stationed means you have an assignment, even if it hasn't been revealed yet. It means God trusts you to hold your position when it's not popular. It means he's training you to follow even when there's no crowd cheering. He's teaching you to worship without a platform, to lead without a title, to believe without proof. This isn't a punishment, it's positioning. And when the time is right, what looked like a delay will become your divine deployment. The same place where you felt stuck will become the very place where your next step will launch from.